You're watching Tornado Facts with Beanrock124, Season 2, Episode 18, or Episode 38. My name is Nathan, and I talk about tornadoes all the time. Today is a very special Tornado Facts with Beanrock124 video, not because of the tornado outbreak that happened a couple weeks ago. It's because of this, the 1999 Oklahoma tornado outbreak. Between May 2nd and May 8th, 1999. I cannot believe we finally made it to this episode of Tornado Facts with Beanrock124. So the tornado outbreak of May 2nd through 8th, 1999 was a significant tornado outbreak that affected much of the central and much of the central and parts of the eastern United States, with the highest record-breaking wind speeds of 301 plus or minus 20 miles an hour wind speeds. During this week-long event, 154 tornadoes touched down, including one in Canada. More than half of them were on May 3rd and May 4th, when activity reached its peak over Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Texas, and Arkansas. The most significant tornado first touched down southwest of Chickasha, Oklahoma, and became an F5 tornado before dissipating near Midwest City. That's actually wrong because there was two tornadoes near Chickasha. Actually, 2 or 3 near Chickasha, and then the F5 became a separate tornado that spawned north of Chickasha. The tornado tore through the southern and eastern parts of Oklahoma City and its suburbs of Bridge Creek, Moore, Dell City, Tinker Air Force Base, and Midwest City, killing 36 people, destroying more than 8,000 homes, and causing $1.5 billion in damage. The first tornado in history to cause $1 billion in damage just from a single tornado. With a total of 72 tornadoes, it was the most prolific tornado outbreak in Oklahoma history, although it was not the deadliest. The deadliest being the 1947 Glacier-Higgins-Woodward tornado outbreak. So, here's your meteorological synopsis. The outbreak was caused by a vigorous upper-level trough that moved into the central and southern plains states on the morning of May 3rd. Here. Trough was about here, this area. So then all the supercell development was along this dry line there. I believe the trough is somewhere in this area. That morning, low stratus clouds overspread much of Oklahoma with clear skies along and west of a dry line located from Gage to Childress, Texas. Air temperatures at 7 a.m. ranged in the mid to upper 60s across the region, while dew point values ranged in the low to mid 60s. The Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, a division of the National Weather Service, initially issued a slight risk of severe thunderstorms early that morning, stretching from the Kansas-Nebraska border to parts of southern Texas, with the intended threat of large hail damaging winds and tornadoes. By late morning, the low cloud cover began to dissipate in advance of the dry line, but during the afternoon hours, high cirrus clouds overspread the region, resulting in filtered sunshine in some areas that caused atmospheric destabilization. The sunshine and heating combined with the abundant low-level moisture combined to produce a very unstable air mass. Upper air balloon soundings observed strong directional wind shear, cooling temperatures at high atmospheric levels, and the increased potential for CAPE values potentially exceeding 4,000 joules per kilogram, levels that are considered favorable for supercells and tornadoes. As observations and forecasts began to indicate an increasing likelihood of widespread severe weather conditions, even more favorable for strong tornadoes, the SPC issued a moderate risk of severe weather at 11:15 a.m. for portions of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, along and near the I-40 corridor. By 3 p.m., it had become evident that a widespread severe weather event was imminent. The Storm Prediction Center upgraded locations within the moderate risk to a high risk of severe weather around 4 p.m. as wind shear profiles combined with volatile atmospheric conditions had made conditions highly conducive for a significant tornadic event across most of Oklahoma, southern Kansas, and north Texas, including the likelihood of violent, damaging tornadoes. Ooh, how they got it right. The SPC issued a tornado watch by mid-afternoon as conditions gathered for what would be a historic tornado outbreak. By the time the thunderstorms began developing in the late afternoon hours, CAPE values over the region have reached to near 6,000 joules per kilogram. Jeez. Large supercell thunderstorms developed, and in the late afternoon through the mid-evening hours on that Monday, tornadoes began to break out across the state. So here you go. Here's the radar loop of that. The first supercell, this would be the supercell that spawned the tornado. Goes through Oklahoma City. This one, right along here, I'll let it replay again. So, here's the main one here. This one splits off right there. This one will produce the Mohole tornado that could have been the widest tornado ever. We'll get to that in a little bit. But that's just a radar loop of the storms on May 3rd. So, let's go to the list of confirmed tornadoes. Here's all the tornadoes that touched down on May 3rd. Here's the Mora 5. I could zoom in here. Oops. Okay, so here's the Mora 5 there. Here's this one's Chickasha. This one was spawned by a different tornado. This one, I believe this one here was the Mohall one, the massive one there. And you had a couple up in Wichita. But the confirmed tornadoes here, I'll read it all. This is the entire list, because this one on that page breaks it down by day. So here's the confirmed tornadoes. None unrated: 73 F0, 44 F1, 20 F2, 10 F3, 4 F4s, and 1 F5 for a total of 152 tornadoes. By day, 10 tornadoes touched down on May 2nd, 3 F0, 5 F1, and only 2 F2s. On May 3rd, 73 tornadoes, 38 F0, 18 F1, 7 F2, 6 F3, 3 F4, and 1 F5. May 4th, 43, 20, 12, 7, 4, 0, 0. So now you get the idea of how this list works, and you could actually view it here. But okay. So here we go. Here are the tornadoes. This is the first one on May 3rd near Medicine Park. This is near Lawton. This would be this one right here is F3 tornado, 100 yards near Anadarko, which is that tornado right there. F3 there. You had one Cyril, another one Anadarko. Here's a Laverty to Chickasha. This one half mile wide, 9 miles. F3 there. This one would track west and north of Chickasha before lifting, and this one would produce the infamous F5 satellite tornado northwest of Chickasha. And then you had the F2 that hit the municipal airport at Chickasha there, 500 yards wide, 4 miles, and then the big boy. This tornado, as far as I've read, had only produced 2 satellite tornadoes, one near Newcastle and then one near Midwest City. This is the Wichita tornado there, F4. This one near Kingfisher, F3, 450 yards wide. This one, Dover to Hennessy. This is the Mohole tornado, I believe. No, this is the Mohole tornado right here, mile wide. They're saying it could have been at least 4 miles wide. We'll get to that in a second. But here, we're still going down the list of tornadoes. Of course, there were a lot. This one looks familiar. What is this? Look at this. Read this. F2, north of Clarksville, Texas, to northwest of Idabel, Oklahoma. Gee, I wonder what other day had that happen. Let's replace this with November, and then that could stay, and then we're good. It's actually I actually did not see that. That's actually pretty cool that it happened again. But yeah. Oh, look, there was one in Illinois. So at least we could say Illinois was part of this outbreak. Huh. F4 in Tennessee. Did not know about that. And then here's the Canada one on May 8th. This is the only one that occurred in Canada. Whole Quebec, Canada on May 8th. Barely much. So, that's done. Let's go down to here. Next episode is a more in-depth look into the May 3rd more tornadoes. So, I'm just going to give a brief explanation on this here. At approximately 3:30 p.m. Central Time, a severe thunderstorm began forming in Tillman County in southwestern Oklahoma. A severe thunderstorm warning was issued for the storm by the National Weather Service in Norman at 4:15. The storm quickly developed supercell characteristics and began exhibiting potentially tornadic rotation, resulting in the National Weather Service issuing the first tornado warning of the event for Comanche, Caddo, and Grady counties. Approximately 35 minutes later at 4:50 p.m. The first tornado from the supercell touched down 7 miles east-northeast of Medicine Park at 4:51 p.m. It produced 4 additional tornadoes and as it tracked northeast into Caddo County. The strongest of which, rated as an F3, touched down 2 miles west-southwest of Laverty and dissipated 2.5 miles west-northwest of downtown Chickasha. This large tornado had exhibited a companion satellite tornado for a few minutes. That's the famous one there. The storm produced the most significant tornado of the outbreak, which touched down just southwest of the Grady County community of Amber at 6:23 p.m. and headed northeast parallel to I-44 and the H.E. Bailey Turnpike, just after another tornado had passed over the Chickasha Airport. The storm continued moving northeast, directly destroying the community of Bridge Creek, as in crossing I-44 just north of Newcastle near the Newcastle Casino. Actually, I believe it crossed I-44 at the Newcastle Casino, which is something May 20th did not do. It crossed about 1.5 miles north of the casino. Where were we? The tornado then crossed the Canadian River, passing into far southern Oklahoma City. As it passed Bridge Creek at 6:54 p.m., a Dow operated by Josh Warman detected wind speeds of 302 miles per hour, 22 plus or minus. So it could have been as low as 282 and as high as 322 miles an hour. Inside the tornado at an elevation of 105 feet. These winds, however, occurred above the ground, and winds at the surface may have not been quite this intense. The tornado continued on into Moore, then passed over the intersection of Shields Boulevard and I-35 and back into Oklahoma City, crossing I-240 near Bryant. The tornado then turned more northerly, striking parts of Dell City and the Tinker Air Force Base near Sooner Road as a F4 tornado. The storm damaged or destroyed several businesses, homes and churches in Midwest City. Some damage in this area was rated as a high-end F4, although F5 was considered, even though F5 already occurred in Moore, along with Bridge Creek. Man, I cannot speak. I don't know what is happening to me. The tornado diminished over Midwest City and finally lifted near the intersection of Reno Avenue and Woodcrest Drive. 36 people died in this tornado, and over 8,000 homes were badly damaged or destroyed. The tornado caused $1 billion in damage, making it the second costliest tornado in U.S. history, and the most costliest tornado in U.S. history from 1999 to 2011, at which point it was surpassed by the Tuscaloosa tornado and again by the Joplin tornado. It was also the deadliest tornado to hit the U.S. since the April 10, 1979 F4 tornado that hit Wichita Falls, Texas, which killed 42 people. Obviously, this left out several details about the tornado. Luckily, I will be going into more in-depth look of this video, or this tornado next video. So, if you can wait a week, then hooray for you. So, here's the Mulhall F4 tornado. This is not the tornado. This is just one near Minko. I highly doubt it's the same one because, look, it's still daylight. But late in the evening on May 3rd at 9:25 p.m., a destructive tornado touched down 3 miles southwest of Cimarron City in Logan County, Oklahoma, eventually hitting the town of Mulhall, located north of Guthrie. This wedge tornado, which tracked a 35-mile path, was very wide at times and exceeded 1 mile wide. According to storm-chasing meteorologist Roger Edwards, it may have been as violent or more than violent than the F5 Bridge Creek tornado, but it was only rated F4. Now, here's the part that I agree with. A Dow mobile radar, I believe it's the same one that Josh Warman was in, observed this tornado as it crossed into Mulhall. The Dow documented the largest ever observed core flow circulation with a distance of 5,200 feet between peak velocities on either side of the tornado, and roughly a 4.3 mile width of peak wind gusts exceeding 96 miles per hour, making the Mulhall tornado the largest tornado ever measured quantitatively, or however you pronounce that word. I know how to say it, it's just I can't say it right now. Quantitatively. I don't know what I said. The Dow measured a complex multi-vortex structure with several vortices containing winds up to 260 miles an hour rotating around the tornado. So those vortices were F4 intensity. So that's just scary. The 3D structure of this tornado has been analyzed in the 2005 article in the Journal of Atmospheric Sciences by Wen Xiao Li and Josh Warman. The tornado severely damaged or destroyed 60 to 70% of the 130 homes in Mulhall, destroying the Mulhall Orlando Elementary School and toppling the city's water tower. I thought the water towers that are in the path of tornadoes are supposed to be aerodynamic. And I like how it says here, I just noticed this, I like how it says less than 260 miles per hour. I highly doubt that. But I usually consider this tornado to be the widest tornado ever, considering how big the peak vortice velocities on either side of the tornado were, and the peak wind gusts exceeding 4.3 miles wide. So I consider this the largest tornado ever. They're saying it could have been at least 3 miles wide or even possibly larger. So after the tornado dissipated at roughly 10:45 p.m. in southeastern Noble County, 3 miles northeast of Perry, many of the same areas of Logan County struck by the Mulhall tornado were hit again by an F3 tornado that produced by a separate supercell that touched down 2.5 miles south of Crescent at 11:33 p.m. Damage caused by this tornado was indistinguishable from damage caused by the earlier F4 tornado. 25 homes were destroyed and 30 others were damaged near Crescent, with much of the damage believed to have been caused by both tornadoes. So it's just like Tanner, Alabama on April 3rd, 1974, except in the case of Tanner, Alabama, both tornadoes were F5. This one would be an F3. Actually, no, the first one would be an F4, the second one would be an F3. Here's Stroud, Oklahoma, which is just east of Oklahoma City. At 10:10 p.m., a damaging tornado touched down 3 miles northeast of Sparks in Lincoln County, with only sporadic tree damage occurring as it tracked northeast toward Davenport. Scattered damage of high end F0 to low end F1 intensity occurred to some homes and businesses on the southeast side of Davenport, though a house located just south of the town lost more than half of its roof. As the tornado continued to track northeast parallel with I-44 and Highway 66, sounds similar to something that happened earlier today. Stroud took a direct hit as the storm had intensified to F2 strength. The trucking terminal of Sigma Food Distribution Warehouse, I think that's how you pronounce it, Sigma, yeah. And the west side of town was destroyed, with some grinders and siding from the warehouse thrown northwest across Highway 66, and the Stroud Municipal Hospital suffered significant roof damage, which resulted in significant water damage within the building. The most severe damage consisted with an F3 tornado occurred at the Tanger Outlet Mall at 10:39 p.m., with almost all the stores suffering roof damage at a minimum, though sections of 7 storefronts were destroyed and the exterior walls of the Levi's store were collapsed inward. The mall was evacuated in advance of the tornado, resulting in no injuries or loss of life in the building. The tornado finally dissipated 1 mile south of Stroud Lake at 11:48 p.m. While there were no fatalities overall in Stroud, the economic impact of the tornado had been compared to the loss of Tinker Air Force Base, General Motors, and a major regional hospital for the Stroud region as compared to Oklahoma City at the time. Approximately 800 jobs were lost in a community of approximately 3,400 people due to the damage at the distribution warehouse and the outlet mall, neither of which were rebuilt. Stroud's recovery was later compacted by the 9/11 terrorist attacks, although the town has since recovered as a result of higher oil and gas prices. Local leading industries include Service King, an oil field manufacturing facility, and Mint Turbines, a helicopter engine reconditioning facility. Stroud is now a downloading facility location for oil produced in the northern United States in the Cushing pipeline network. Cushing is a town in Payne County. So, the May 3rd tornado event was part of a 3-day event that included tornadoes in the states of Kansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, and Tennessee. A deadly F4 tornado tracked 24 miles across south central Kansas, which killed 6 people in Hayesville and Wichita during the late evening on May 3rd. Other fatalities during this event included 1 person killed in Texas on May 4th by an F3 tornado that tracked 71.5 miles from near Winfield, Texas, to south of Mineral Springs, Arkansas, and 3 people were killed in Tennessee on May 5th and 6th by an F4 tornado that struck the town of Linden. Flash flooding killed 1 person in Camden County, Missouri on May 4th, and on May 6th, lightning struck and killed a man in Cobbtown, Georgia. So on May 3rd through 4th, the day after the initial outbreak event, President Clinton signed a federal disaster declaration for 11 Oklahoma counties. In a press statement by FEMA, then Director James Lee Witt stated that the president is deeply concerned about the tragic loss of life and destruction by these devastating storms. The American Red Cross opened 10 shelters overnight, housing 1,600 people immediately following the disaster, decreasing to 500 people by May 5th. On May 5th, several emergency response and damage assessment teams from FEMA were deployed to the region. The United States Department of Defense deployed the 249th Engineering Battalion and placed the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on standby for assistance. Medical motory teams were also sent by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and by May 6th, donation centers and phone banks were being established to create funds for victims of the tornadoes. Within the first few days of the disaster declaration, relief funds were sent to families requesting aid. Roughly $180,000 had been approved by FEMA for disaster housing assistance by May 9th. Debris removal began on May 12th as 7 cleanup teams were sent to the region, with more expected to join over the following days. That day, FEMA also granted 7 Oklahoma counties, Canadian, Craig, Grady, Lincoln, Logan, Noble, and Oklahoma, eligibility for federal financial assistance. Roughly $1.6 million in disaster funds had been approved for housing and businesses loans by May 13th. Excuse that. Increasing to more than $5.9 million in the following days. Applications for federal aid continued through June, with state aid approvals reaching $54 million by June 3rd. According to FEMA, more than 9,500 Oklahoma residents applied for federal aid during the accoladed period in the wake of the tornadoes, including 3,800 in Oklahoma County, 3,757 in Cleveland County, and other numbers in other areas. Disaster recovery aid for the tornadoes totaled to roughly $67.8 million by July 2nd. But from a meteorological and safety standpoint, the tornado called into question the use of highway overpasses as shelters from tornadoes. I'm Mike Morgan. Because there's a video of him. I'll have to look at the live coverage video. But there's a point in there where he says if you have to get under overpass, do it. I forget. I don't know if it was him or not, but I believe it was. Prior to the events of May 3rd, 1999, videos of people taking shelter in overpasses during tornadoes in the past created public misunderstanding and moving on, that overpasses provided adequate shelter from tornadoes. It does not. Although meteorologists had questioned the safety of these structures for nearly 20 years, there had been no evidence supporting the incidences involving loss of life. However, during May 3rd, 3 overpasses were directly struck by the tornadoes, resulting in fatalities at each location. 2 occurred as a result of the Moore tornado, while the third occurred in rural Payne County. I keep saying incurred. I don't know why. Payne County, this tornado here, the third death was caused by an F2 tornado. According to NOAA, seeking shelter in an overpass is, quote, to become a stationary target for flying debris. With the wind channeling effect that occurs within these structures, along with an increase in wind speed above ground levels, changing in wind direction when the tornado vortex passes, and the fact that most overpasses do not have girders for people to take shelter between, also provide little to no protection. A lot of, actually, I believe all the overpasses that deaths occurred at, like Shields and a couple near Bridge Creek, they had no girders. So people were just exposed. And it was just terrible what happened. I'm not even going to describe what happened, and I know what happened, but I'm not going to describe what happened in those overpasses. It might say it in the next episode when I read this, but either way, it ain't going to be pleasant. But that is it for Season 2, Episode 18 of Tornado Facts, Beanrock124, this one being about the tornado outbreak of May 2nd through 8, 1999. And if you couldn't tell, I was pretty nervous when I was making this because I was excited to do this, and I kept stuttering over a lot of stuff. Just so you know. I don't know why I'm saying it right now. Probably because I didn't plan to do it before. But who cares? Goodbye.